I just want freedom and want all these people left alone. How in the world is that champing you? Laughable, you catch an attitude. Glad that you going mad cause my attributes call me bad and a radical, but that is so erratic.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. We're going to be talking about AEW Dynamite from July the 5th, 2023. Rather boring show, if we're being honest. Not even much to make fun of on this show, if we're being for real. But, so we got some news and notes. First, everybody's been talking a lot about the Collision rating for the weekend episode, which I believe was July the 1st. So let's talk about it a little bit. Apparently, they did 452,000 viewers at a 0.13 rating, which was a far cry from its initial standard. And then also a far drop from the previous week. Now, I'm not one of these people. Again, I don't even like talking about ratings. But when I do, I want to be fair. And to be fair, this was a holiday weekend. A lot of people had a 3-day weekend or something like that. They were traveling. It's summertime. People want to be outside. This is what I said it was going to be the problem with Collision from the beginning. Not a lot of people want to sit in on a summer Saturday night and watch pro wrestling, especially pro wrestling that don't matter. Why watch that? Why spend your time doing that when you could spend your time doing literally anything else? Especially if you watched the Money in the Bank earlier in the day, that means you've already watched pro wrestling for the day. And I know that AEW fans are the hardest of the hardcore fans and likely watched both, So it really don't matter to say that Money in the Bank was there, which I know a lot of people was using as an excuse that, Money in the Bank cut into it. Money in the Bank ended 2 hours before, well, at least 30 minutes before AEW even started. But I don't think this is the normal number for Collision. I think it's going to creep up around 600. It's going to start doing NXT numbers, and I think that's where it's going to be for the entirety of its run. And then on holiday weekends, sports weekends, is going to get decimated, which is exactly what I said before. I saw another thing. A lot of people think this is some kind of indictment on CM Punk. Without even looking at the show, you need to realize CM Punk was not advertised for that show. He was doing commentary. So, for starters, they really wasn't doing much in the way of storyline that involved CM Punk, and let alone him wrestling. So it's not a CM Punk is not a draw situation, because he was barely on the show. So it wasn't that. Also, the show was taped. So I think the show was taped like a week before. So it had all these things that were working against it already. It's a bad day, bad time slot. There was already wrestling on earlier. The show was taped. The top star of the show wasn't even featured on the show. To see that it got down to 452, big deal. When you take everything into account, big damn deal. It did a bad number. If it gets worse with, Joe versus Punk at the top, then we can say something a little bit different. But that's why I don't like talking about ratings. People don't take everything into account. They just look and say, it was a bad show, so it got a bad rating. And they try to use the ratings to justify whether they like something or not, when that's not what the ratings are for. That is not what the ratings are for. All right, so since we're on the subject of Collision, let's talk about Malachi Black, who went on a podcast. I believe it was actually Bobby Fish's podcast, which is what blew my mind. If anybody actually want to listen to Bobby Fish speak, why in the world would you want to listen to Bobby Fish speak? Where's the lie? Anyway, this is what he had to say. I requested to be strictly on Collision. I don't want people to get the pick. Saturday night, I get to see House of Black. If I give you the option for Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, you're going to go, it doesn't really matter. I'll tune in whenever they'll be there. I don't want to lose the polish. So he wants to try to make House of Black special. And in doing so, he figures the best way to make them special was to limit them to one night. So if you want to see House of Black, you have to watch Collision. And, I honestly don't hate that explanation, I think is actually a kind of a decent explanation. That being said, though, it is kind of suspicious that he virtually disappeared from Dynamite anyway. Like he virtually disappeared after he feuded with the Elite. They virtually got pitched over to Rampage anyway. I mean, it was just kind of a thing that occurred. They would occasionally have a match on Dynamite, but they didn't really have too many storylines on Dynamite. And it seems to me like Malachi Black might be one of those folks that are kind of on the outs with a certain clique within AEW, especially with, the whole thing about his mental health and people saying that he wanted to leave and all this sort of stuff. Like, those rumors came out of nowhere, and, it took him a while to fight through those rumors, and I'm not surprised that he doesn't want to be around that stuff anymore, so Malachi Black only on Collision. He's a Collision exclusive. Good for him. So a lot of people are also spending a lot of time talking about Jon Moxley and New Japan and the chopsticks that was sticking out of his head out of one of the Independence Day shows that New Japan did over the weekend. Jon Moxley was involved with some kind of hardcore deathmatch shenanigans, which ended with him getting stabbed in the head with hundreds of chopsticks, which is something that has been done on death matches, for the last couple of years as guys have gotten dumber and dumber. Moxley is one of those guys that he prefers doing this. And I see a lot of wrestling fans who get into this argument about how he's fallen off. He was a top babyface in the top wrestling company in the world, but he would rather do this. And it's like, I think that if you actually learn a little bit about him, read his book or something like that, that's just kind of how some people are, like some people are just unhappy having large fan bases and, making a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. They prefer the intimate, smaller shows, to be the big fish in the small pond. They also prefer to do things that are a little bit more physical. When you look at, like I said, I read Moxley's book. One of the things in it is that he kind of was upset at Triple H for, saying some snide remarks about Terry Funk. And since Terry Funk is, one of the heroes of sort of the indie wrestling crowd, because he always chose to do indie shows and things like ECW over doing WWE. Because to him, that's what real wrestling was. It was, the blood and guts Memphis stuff and the stuff that he grew up on and the stuff that his dad did and the stuff that was in the various territories. And that's always what Terry Funk had. And he's become sort of the last bastion of what that business was. And everybody who looks up to him, and, Eddie Kingston's another guy who is kind of like that. And if you listen to a lot of wrestling fans that are like hardcore, fans of the indies and the various territories, they really speak highly of Terry Funk. And Moxley is one of those guys. For him, he would rather do chopsticks to the head than work the main event of WrestleMania, because to him it's more fulfilling to do chopsticks to the head. Now, do I pretend to understand that? No, I don't pretend to understand that at all. But that's just kind of how he is. And so a lot of people are looking at this like it's a big downgrade, but you have to realize Moxley ain't doing shit he doesn't want to do, because he knows he can always walk back to WWE, and everybody who works with him knows that. So anytime he does anything, he's doing it under the auspices that he doesn't have to. He's basically doing, like he said about CM Punk, I'm doing you a favor, because he already knows that there's big money in a Shield run, and big money with him and Rollins, big money with him and Roman. He could always go back to WWE. He knows that, and he kind of uses that as I could be doing all of this cool stuff that you see in WWE, but I would hate it because I had scripted promos and they would structure my matches. I wouldn't be able to blade. I wouldn't be able to bleed and all this kind of stuff. So I would rather be here with you guys, but I'm big fish, small pond. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And this is what he wants to do. He wants to be stabbed in the head with chopsticks. I say we respect his opinion and just let him do what he does. So for me, I'm not surprised by anything John Moxley has done after he kissed Effie in the mouth, and after he got, I think he got a staph infection, which caused him to miss a huge pay-per-view in AEW, because he was wrestling Pentagon at some virtually empty building in the Northeast. That's just the kind of guy he is. To him, this is what pro wrestling is. Everybody's version of it is different. Everybody's thought processes of it is different. So that's what he want to do. So be it. What the hell am I to say anything about it? But it looked dumb, and it ain't my style. I even if I had to watch the blood and guts stuff, stabbing people legitimately, it just sounds stupid. It defeats the purpose of what pro wrestling actually is, but I guess, what can I do? All right, let's get into this regular show now. So they started with the blind eliminator tournament. They haven't done a bracket or nothing. They're just doing random stuff. The teams are Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland versus Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin. So Keith Lee and Darby Allin had a promo segment before the match started, in which Darby asked Keith Lee if he feels lost in the shuffle, he should use that frustration to end this match, and that he should pull his head out of his ass. And Keith Lee was like, "Oh, Mr. Allen, rather ballsy, sir. I must say, I like your gumption. I like the cut of your jib. Rather stupid, I say, but I understand it. Rather ballsy." So they go out here and they have this match. And it was, for starters, the entrance. Keith Lee has his entrance, and he sizes up Toa Liona. Now, here's a little thing that WWE would have fixed that AEW should have fixed. If you knew you was going to do a spot where Toa Liona is going to get sized up by Keith Lee and bumped into him and everything, at least tell Toa Liona to stare down Keith Lee, because Keith Lee walks up to Toa Liona, who's kind of looking at the cameras, looking straight down the aisle, and Keith Lee is staring at him, and Toa Liona is kind of like trying to avoid eye contact. I'm like, what are you doing? You're the big savage Samoan, whatever he is. I think he's like half Samoan, half Puerto Rican or whatever. Big dude. Like, you should be staring back. Like you should be, bossing up on Keith Lee. Like, who you staring at? But just how Toa Liona basically just tried everything to not look at Keith Lee. And then Keith Lee bumped into him, and now he wants to, go confront him. And then, all the embassy guys held him back. I was like, man, they made Toa Liona look really weak. Just imagine if, Keith Lee had stood next to him and was kind of sizing him up. And Toa Liona, who should be an alpha male, big dude, jacked, mean, should be like, what the hell are you? And they should have been like chin to chin. Like, I know, Keith Lee's bigger, but he should have just been like, all right, do something. And then everybody should have got in and, separated them. Like, no, we good for now. Like, just little things can really help, It also would help if he was shown more as a killer. That would help too. But we're too busy wrestling midgets. So they really threw me for a loop with this. Orange Cassidy was selling the Mongolian chops from Keith Lee. And then he had to put his hands in his pockets to try to show that these chops didn't mean nothing, which of course led to him getting chopped even harder. There was various spots in this match. I didn't like it, clearly. It was dumb. Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland has been involved with a storyline where they don't like each other, and they had no finality to the story. And here in this match, they're attacking each other, and it's supposedly accidental. For instance, there was a powerbomb superplex spot in which Keith Lee carried Swerve while, he had Darby posted in a superplex, and he powerbombed him. And that was kind of a powerbomb to Swerve, but suplex to Darby. And that was kind of just a little dig, Then later, Swerve tries to do something, and he ends up 450 splashing Keith Lee, and he laughed about it because Keith Lee didn't move. And, it was little stuff like that. The one spot that I did notice that I thought was kind of crazy, and it's crazy just saying it out loud. But Orange Cassidy was on Keith Lee's back, and he's holding him there. The metal stairs that lead to the ring are on Darby's lower body, like his legs and stuff. Keith Lee walks up the stairs with Orange Cassidy on his back, crushing the legs of Darby Allin. And I'm just like, how could he possibly continue this match when this tractor trailer is standing on top of him? And I'm like, well, he's Luke Cage midget version, because he can't be hurt. He cannot be harmed. So it is what it is. Anyway, of course, Keith Lee and Swerve lose because Orange Cassidy's in this match. So Orange Cassidy wins. At the end of the match, Darby Allin and Keith Lee fist bumped. I don't know why. What is there to celebrate? You lost. Why are you celebrating? You lost mainly because of Swerve and his goofiness. So you should have killed him, but AEW, they don't know what to do with the talent what they do have. Next, Nick Wayne had a vignette where Darby basically talked about being trained by Nick Wayne's dad, Buddy Wayne. And when Buddy Wayne died, Darby took Nick under his wing and helped him get a AEW contract when he was only 16. Next week is Nick Wayne's 18th birthday, and therefore he will be debuting in AEW. So he's been under contract for the last 2 years. He's been working GCW and Defy and other wrestling promotions. If you've never seen Nick Wayne before, trust me, you ain't missing nothing. Think Zack Sabre Jr., except 18. Think Hook, except less charisma. Think Jungle Boy, except a little bit more charisma. He's a plain Jane kid wrestler who is pretty technically sound, but of all the people to do a vignette for, Nick Wayne is the guy. And also his opponent is going to be Swerve Strickland. And Swerve is also from the Seattle area. So this is sort of a big deal for Nick Wayne. Swerve is basically just sacrificing himself for Nick. I doubt Nick Wayne loses. You would think they would give him just like a regular jobber to beat, rather than somebody like Swerve. But hey, Swerve is in a position where I guess he can call us some shots. So I guess he'll do it. But Nick Wayne ain't that special to me. He's been tag teaming with like Jordan Oliver and I've seen him in person. He's not that big. He's a teenager, so he's not filled out yet. He's not fully mature yet. But he has some experience. He has more experience than some people on NXT right now. Because he's been in the business for several years already. Like I said, they signed him to AEW when he was 16. That was 2 years ago. So if you're a wrestler guy, you're probably about to be okay with this. But everybody who likes, characters and stuff, you really would have wished this guy would have spent that time doing other stuff. But he's a young dude. So I don't want to talk trash about him, but I just need to tell the truth. He's a regular teenage pro wrestler, and there's nothing spectacular about him, really. Unless he's changed since the last time I saw him, which was in January, February, 4 months ago or something like that. It wasn't that long ago. Or was it in April? It was whenever GCW was at Harpo's recently. I saw Nick Wayne there. But it was fine. He's not going to knock your socks off or anything. Anyway, Jack Perry, he shows up. He's very paranoid about Hook. Says that last week was ridiculous. He is not a street thug, and that he's going to handle this in the ring like a professional. He's going to go to Tony Khan's office and demand a FTW title match. At this point, he's assaulted by Hook. He then flees back into his truck and drives off. Weird that Tony Khan would be the one asked, rather, for the FTW title match, considering Tony Khan does not recognize the FTW title. So why wouldn't you just talk Hook into putting it on the line? That seems like the one time where a guy should be able to make his own match, because the belt is not sanctioned by AEW. So who cares what Tony Khan thinks about it? Anyway, I think they're doing this a little soon. They should probably drag this out a little bit more, but it's AEW. All they care about is matches. And in terms of promos, he's still kind of stiff, Jack Perry, but he's at least loosening up a little bit. It's fine. So we got a lot of MJF Adam Cole stuff tonight. Some of it was fun. Some of it was not so fun. Let's go through the fun stuff first. MJF took Adam Cole to the gym, which I immediately started laughing at. What made it even funnier is that Adam Cole was already at the gym. To try to make it seem like, oh yeah, he definitely works out. In fact, he's at the gym before MJF is there. MJF gets on the bar. He needs Adam Cole to spot him. Adam Cole claims that he's going to, but that he's texting. MJF does his thing and then starts making fat jokes about the fat guy at the gym. Adam Cole says that he can't do that. You can't make fun of people like this. You know, it's mean. You can't be mean. Then they both laugh about how the guy reminds Adam Cole of Tony Schiavone. Then Adam Cole gets on the bar, and you could see in the promo how it's leaning, how the bar is leaning to one side, like it's leaning to the right, I believe it is. But MJF is selling it like Adam Cole is just like pumping the same thing that he's pumped, but he's doing it a lot more. And MJF is like, what? What the fuck? You know? And so I thought that was fun, you know? Them hanging out, doing best friend stuff. I thought that was fun. I know some people may be like, oh, that was silly. I liked it. It was outside the ring character stuff, which is what I always like about wrestling. I like outside the ring character stuff, man. And then they got to the match. MJF and Adam Cole versus Fat 2.0 and The Butcher. I didn't want to watch this, to be honest. But MJF won me over in the entrance. He came out first. He basically did the little Scott Hall pointing to the entrance so Adam Cole could come out. He mocked Adam Cole's entrance, even doing the boom and all that kind of stuff with him. And then my favorite part is when he ran around Adam Cole like Rick Steiner used to do to Scott, and then did the baby. I thought that was excellent. I was like, we having fun here. All right. You know, MJF is in full shit heel mode. This is fun. So they worked this match. It's awful. It's an awful match. It's entirely too long. And it features people nobody gives a fuck about. Who the fuck cares about the Butcher? Really? I don't even have the energy as I ramble about Natalia and Dana Brooke and all them. I don't even have that kind of smoke for the Butcher. I just want to know why he's here. Why is he in this? Why is he employed? You know, like I would love to know who thought it was a good idea for this guy to be given a paycheck every week. He's useless. And Fat 2.0, I mean, at least he's funny. You know, at least he's funny. He's got a sense of humor. Anyway, the after match was okay. So MJF throws Adam Cole a birthday party. So this was after he says that he wants to have another bro session this weekend, and Adam Cole agrees to it. Then MJF yells at Adam Cole, "Happy birthday!" A cake comes out. They got balloons. They got streamers. Whole 9 yards. There's a big thing. Adam Cole is standing there. He's kind of embarrassed. He's kind of frustrated too because, you know, he knows that MJF has landed on very, very thick. He's trying his best to be the Rock in this situation. Like there's a Rock and a Foley in these odd couples. So Adam Cole is supposed to be the Rock. You know, he's supposed to be the cool guy who doesn't really want to be involved. And MJF is the goof. You know, so he's the one who put on the little hat. And then he puts on Adam Cole's little hat. And he gives him the little blowing thing. And they make noise. And, you know, he's got the little tiny cake and everything. It's real funny. So and he tells Adam Cole to make a wish on the little cake, he's going to smush Adam Cole's face into the cake. But Adam Cole outsmarts him, grabs his face, throws his face in the cake. And everybody was like, oh. And then it looked like, okay, we're ending their friendship already because now MJF is covered in cake. But MJF was a good sport about it. Adam Cole thanked him for the birthday celebration and said he'll see him later. He even called him friend. So they're trying to build this odd couple here where Adam Cole's the cool guy, even though he's a bit of an SJW. Because, he's body shaming some fat guy in the gym. Why? It's like, I don't think The Rock would have cared if Mick Foley would have made fun of people. I think he probably would have helped. He probably would have been the guy making fun of people, And the odd couple it's hard to pull off, because somebody has to have charisma. And both of these guys have charisma. MJF was willing to debase himself a little bit, but it was already in his character from the stuff that he did with Jericho that he is willing to go above and beyond. He's willing to sing and wear tiny hats and do comedy. And Adam Cole had to be the straight man. He had to be the guy who is not really all about the joke, The joke goes over his head, or he's the butt of the joke. I'm not sure if he can pull that off. I'm really questioning if Adam Cole could pull that role off. Because now we're looking at MJF, we know that he can do it. He can play the Foley role very well. I wouldn't get used to putting MJF in that situation, but he could pull it off very well. So I actually liked the post-match stuff too. I liked the before match vignette. I liked the post-match stuff. If that match would have been shorter, then I think we would have been fine with MJF and Adam Cole. But because that match was so goddamn long, that match was incredibly long. If it was 8 minutes, it was too long. Boy, shit. Just got to think about it. You're doing too much. All right, moving on. Let's just move on. The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn defeated the Bollywood Boys and the Blade. Again, 3 people who shouldn't have jobs, or if they do, they should have temp jobs. They should come from a temp agency. They should show up and be paid per appearance, and that's it. The Bollywood Boys, they're still around. Okay, after that long stint in WWE, they're still around. The Blade, just as useless as his partner, wasn't he in TNA? Because every time I look at that guy, I just keep thinking he was in TNA at some point. The Blade. Who was he in TNA? He must have been in TNA during the dark days. Because if he was there during the good old days, I definitely would remember him. But I don't. Anyway, Billy Gunn still behaves like it's 1999, even threatening to pull his pants down. He needs to stop. He needs to be stopped. He's a terrorist. After the match, because the Acclaim won, their celebration was interrupted by QTV, the blonde chick. Her name is Harley Cameron. Anyway, she's talking about proving to them that she's a talented musician. She called herself Miss Money on the mic, and she's going to make them peanut butter and jealous. I wanted to choke this woman. I've never wanted to actually... peanut butter and jealous. I want to beat her with a fish. I just want to punch her in the face with a marshmallow. This is stupid. Now, in terms of her proving that she's a musician, she is a musician. She's a singer, actually. I know this because last Halloween, I think Harley Cameron, Shotzi, and some other young lady were singing songs, and they were uploading them on YouTube for Halloween. So she is a singer, and she's not terrible. So I'm guessing that's what they're about to do, is introduce her singing to the show. Not sure if that's the right decision to go with, but who cares? It is what it is. I wish they need to script her if she's going to talk. If she's going to say stuff like peanut butter and jealous, she needs a script. Somebody has to come out of somewhere with a fax. Look, just say what's on this paper, nothing else. All right, you look good, but you're saying stupid stuff. Say what's on this paper and nothing else. In fact, she should not even be involved. For starters, she's involved with QT Marshall, which is already bad. But if she's going to cut terrible promos too, she definitely needs some help. She's definitely going to need some help. So somebody get this girl a script, please. Save her life. Save her career. Next, they did a profile on Eddie Kingston winning a useless New Japan title. It is the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship, and he was basically crying and being very emotional over winning this title, which, look, I don't know what this means to him. But I was a young boy in Yonkers, and I was trying to figure out what kind of wrestler I wanted to be. I always wanted to be like Kenta Kobashi. I always wanted to be like Misawa. I always wanted to be like them. And these guys, man, they won this strong open weight championship. That reminds me a lot of these guys. It's like you won it from Kenta. Kenta he's basically a walking blown out ACL. He's useless. All right. Kenta is one of the most useless guys in all of Japan. He literally has not been shit in 10 years, at least. All right. And this belt is useless. This belt sucks. This is not a legitimate championship. This is one of their 14th tier titles that they just put on people because, well, we have 100 championships in this company. It is the equivalent of winning like some low rent in the WWF European title or something like that, the hardcore title or something, strong open weight champion. What does that even mean? Is this the top title on the Strong Show, or is it a mid card title on the Strong Show? We don't know how this works because there's so many open weight belts and never belts and all this kind of crap. It's just so much of this stuff. We don't know where this ranks on the stuff that they're giving you. So what does this mean? I don't know. But Eddie Kingston is very excited about it. So good for him. All right. The aforementioned Jon Moxley cut a promo. He says that him and Eddie Kingston are the same guys they were when they met in 2009. They both became successful, got everything they wanted out of this business. So why is Eddie Kingston mad? Then he says that Eddie Kingston is one of these old heads who constantly complains about the new generation, while Moxley is the guy who builds the next generation, and that Eddie Kingston needs to embrace the future and answer his phone. So they're not speaking. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Matt Hardy is going to be in the Blind Eliminator tournament. I don't know why, because Matt Hardy can barely move. Can we get, instead of broken Matt Hardy, can we get functional Matt Hardy? Anyway, RJ City rolls the tumbler, pulls out a name, and it's Jeff. Matt thinks it is Jeff Hardy, but instead is Jeff Jarrett. Jeff. JARRETT. That's not going to be as fun as it should be. It's not going to be as fun as it should be. Jeff Jarrett can be a fun guy, but this Blind Eliminator tournament thing has got to be one of the worst things they've ever done. No lie. This got to be one of the worst things they've ever done. This Blind Eliminator tournament is absolutely pointless. I don't even understand what the big deal is. At this point, I struggle to remember who the tag team champions are. Because I'm sitting here like, there's no tag team title feud. At least I don't think so. I know there's a match coming up, but is there a feud? I guess, technically, they have more than one match with these guys, so I guess it's a feud. But I'm sitting here like, if you'd have held a gun to my head and said, who are the tag team champions in AEW? I probably would have said Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Because, I don't know. That's what it feels like. Anyway, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho comes out there, says that he has a lot of big losses lately. It's time to reevaluate, make some changes. And this is the right place to do it because he started his career here in the province of Alberta, trained by the Hearts in Calgary, had his first match not far from there. And it's going to reignite the fire within him because to him, wrestling is everything. So he feels resurrected, feels like the best version of Chris Jericho ever. And then it's interrupted by Don Callis. They start talking about how they helped each other. Jericho wouldn't be in AEW, and Jericho changed the business because of Don Callis' idea 6 years ago for him to wrestle Kenny Omega. Don Callis wasn't even in the business anymore until Chris Jericho told him 8 years ago to get back in the business, and Jericho helped Don Callis get into AEW. I'm sure some people are going to be like, what? Anyway, Don Callis says that he was betrayed by the traitor, Kenny Omega, and is now looking to build a new family. And then he asked Chris Jericho to be in his new family. Jericho says that Chris Jericho does not join factions, he creates them. But since Don Callis is asking, maybe he'll join. He had to put the maybe in there because, you want to try to leave something episodic for people to care about, right? Later, Jericho is confronted by Daniel Garcia, who is saying that they need Jericho. They want Jericho to hang around him and Sammy Guevara. So Jericho says, look, you guys don't need me. You guys need to go out, spread your wings, do great things. That Daniel Garcia and Sammy Guevara are partners in the Blonde Eliminator tournament. And Jericho wants them to go prove him right, that they are the future and they need to win this tournament. So Daniel Garcia and Sammy Guevara kind of agree that, this is their chance to prove that they don't need Chris Jericho. And I looked at this and I said to myself, like, bro, this was very slick on Jericho's part, right? Like, they were really building up a Jericho-Guevara match, and then they swerved it because Jericho had to lose as a Painmaker. Now, all of a sudden, he gets to reset himself. So now he gets to go out there, babyface himself a little bit. And then he sets the Jericho Appreciation Society free. There was no rebellion against Jericho. He basically just said, look, guys, I've done everything I can do for you. Go do things yourselves. Go make me proud. And then I'm like, okay, so that story is over. The whole rebellion of Sammy Guevara, him getting in Jericho's face, him wanting to knock Jericho out and all that, that's just over? That's over? We're done? We're done with that already? We're not going to just, pay off that feud? Why would you start that angle and you're not going to pay it off? Unless you're playing the long game, which I don't understand how you get back to Jericho and Guevara being mad at each other. So, I don't know. Why did you start that and then switch it? Why did you do that? So, it seemed like we were going to Jericho versus Guevara. I guess we still might get that, but we're going to have to play this. We're going to have to go through the safari. Look, I don't care. I'm done. I don't care anymore. Garcia and Guevara are partners. Fine. Who cares? Let's move on. I'm giving it more thought than Tony Khan did, clearly. They did a vignette for Samoa Joe and CM Punk, where Punk talks about never beating Samoa Joe before, and he's going to do it for the first time. Also did a short vignette for Hobbs and Starks, but neither one of them got to talk. That should tell you what they think about them. So that was it. Let's see. Britt Baker wrestled Ruby Soho in the first round of the Owen tournament. Britt Baker actually lost this match because the Outcasts cheated. They kept saving Ruby by pulling her leg out of the ring or distracting the ref. Various heel cheats. And nobody came out to help Britt. Again, weeks and weeks and weeks of people running out to fight the Outcasts. All of a sudden, there's nobody when you actually need them. When you actually need help, nobody comes out. But when the match is over, all of a sudden, the ring is full of girls with chairs and bats and wrenches and everything. Like, where's Riho and Willow? I think Willow was in Japan, so at least that explains why she wasn't there. But why is it like all these other girls that have been fighting the Outcasts week after week after week? Where have they been? Why are they never helping? They're never doing anything. Why is Britt Baker, who when she was a heel, she always had a backup plan, now all of a sudden she's got nothing? I don't understand it. To me, this finish was incredibly flat because all the finishes in the Outcast matches have been flat because they are able to get away with cheating literally all the time. They very rarely get caught by the refs, or if they do get caught by the refs, they don't get ejected. Like, they got caught by the refs cheating in this match. They didn't get ejected. Nobody ever stands up and says Tony and Saraya cannot be at ringside, or only Saraya could be at ringside, or whatever. It's just flat because they keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I want to say this, and I know some people don't get upset with it, but this is the lowest the AEW women's division has ever been. Like, as I was watching this match, I was like, the match is fine for what it is. But I remember when the AEW women's division were trying to go out and have personality and have banger-ass matches where they were cutting promos on each other, even if they were saying stuff that they probably shouldn't say, like, Britt Baker was talking about how people got fired or, whatever. At least it had something where you could sink your teeth into that promo or into that segment. Now it's just the Outcasts. All three of them come out. They're basically interchangeable, which makes Toni Storm come across like she's at least second fiddle, even though she's the world champion and beautiful. She comes across as being almost second or third fiddle in some ways, because you're like, oh my God, she literally doesn't do anything as a champion. She doesn't have any feuds. She's feuding with people, but she doesn't actually feud with anybody who's chasing the title like diligently. She doesn't have any really top contenders. She's not wrestling any of the top contenders. She's not beating Britt Baker and having long matches and stuff with Britt Baker or main event matches compared to what Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa were doing. Or even Serena Deeb and Hikaru Shida. This wasn't that long ago. Like, the AEW women's division has fell off a cliff. Like, the talent level is better than it was back then, but the booking is worse. And in some ways, it's almost mirroring how WWE is. Because WWE has, like, all the talent in the world when it comes to the women. They book them like shit. And AEW is just this. It's the Outcasts and everyone else. And the Outcasts always go over. They don't always win, but they almost always go over because nobody else bands together and helps them. Yes, you want to have a baby face that can fight the heels off by herself, but you also need to have a faction of baby faces, which we thought that's what they were doing. And then they just dropped it. They also did not add any new members to the Outcast. It's just been the same three. So you're like, there's no twist, there's no turns. It's just the same shit each time you see them. And it's boring. Ruby is fine. She is not, she's not the worst. She's not the best. I don't hate Ruby when she's on screen. She's a competent worker. She's right where she needs to be. She is a solid mid-card act. Toni should be much bigger than she really is. It's a shame. I've been championing Toni Storm for 4 fucking years. I was talking about when she was in NXT. Like, she should have been a breakout star. NXT never got her over the hump. She never even really got out of the box in NXT. Then when she went to the main roster, she started getting hit in the face with pies. They didn't know what they wanted to do with her. They took her off TV to make her lose weight. She was still beautiful, but they didn't want them thighs and them hips, which is, what everybody was interested in. So they made her lose all of that stuff. Then she got a big push, and it didn't quite work out because of the whole Charlotte thing. So she skipped town on them, went to AEW, did nothing for months. Now they finally made her the world champion, and she's gaining some momentum as a heel, but she's not treated like the centerpiece of this group. Like, she should be the centerpiece of this group, not a minion that walks around with a title, which is almost the exact same issue we had with Jamie Hayter, where she was basically a minion that was a world champion, which is weird. Like, that's not, you can't be a minion as the world champion unless you're featured very heavily like Seth Rollins was when, he was kind of a minion in the Authority. He wasn't the big boss. That was obviously like Triple H. But he was like right there in the underboss. But he also had like people up under him that he could boss around and do stuff. And it was their job to protect him and all this. Toni needs something similar, Like, she's the world champion. She should not care about this mid-card Owen Hart tournament shit. She should have some other stuff going on. Saraya and somebody else should be helping Ruby win these matches. I'm even fine with Ruby winning because Britt Baker has done her more than her share of winning. But for Christ's sake, just the lack of focus put on this women's division, and then you insist on putting them on TV and giving them so much time, and then fucking match keep ending the same way every time. The bad girls cheat. It's like, oh, okay, great. Thank you very much. It is what it is. It was the same problem with Jade Cargill, man. Jade Cargill had a hella momentum. Everything was working out great. They just refused to mix things up. Give her tougher opponents. Give her real good feuds. Do promos and different things like that to really jazz it up. And it just fell flat. It was what it was. And then it wasn't anymore. So, and yes, not that I mentioned Jade Cargill. I know that she talked about not coming back to AEW. I'm almost 100% sure this is gimmick. That, they pushed Jade for so long. This is basically her opportunity to get a break. But she's been tweeting about loving life outside of the wrestling bubble. And somebody said, please come back. And she was like, no. So I get it. But I think she's clearly working everybody. She's not gone. Gone where for what? I would be, if she were to leave, let's just entertain the idea that Jade Cargill isn't coming back. That would be a huge fumble on AEW's part, because they put so much effort into Jade Cargill, and the only thing they got out of her was she got beaten in 42 seconds by Chris Statlander. And it hasn't seemed to help Chris Statlander at all, because she also is not in any feuds and is not focused on, and it's not a centerpiece. She's not doing any promos. She's just doing goofy ass sign language before every match. And basically every match is an open challenge. This division is an absolute wreck. It's crazy that NXT, even with the resurgence of, from Black and Gold to whatever new generation era NXT they're doing right now, remains being the best booked women's division in wrestling. Everybody else's women's division looks like shit in comparison, except Impact. Impact puts a lot of effort into their women's division too. Unfortunately, the Impact women's division is a quotation women's division, similar to how AEW's were at first. It was a women's division, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that didn't have all women, quote unquote, in it. All right, Ruby Soho is just going to lose to Willow, because Willow is one of the young ladies that has been feuding with the Outcasts. So she's gonna. Well, I think she's wrestling Sky Blue next. Okay, because Willow is wrestling Athena, so she's wrestling Sky Blue next. Sky Blue could probably win this tournament. I think it might be a good push for her. Sky Blue wins in the tournament, that'd be fine. Why Sky Blue didn't come out there to help Britt Baker, don't know. I know that it doesn't make sense because you have to wrestle her later. But Sky Blue is one of the people who kept getting jumped by the Outcast. And if you really wanted to help her get over, having her come out there and help Britt Baker, even if she failed in doing so, it would have been, not too bad. And it definitely would have put some heat on their match between Ruby and Sky next week. But they didn't think about that. They didn't think to do that because they don't care about storylines. They don't care. They don't care. Roderick Strong was on this show too, but who cares? Genuinely, who gives a fuck? All right, the main event of the evening was Wheeler Yuta versus Kenny Omega, a match I had no interest in. None. Wheeler Yuta came out. He got no reaction. Sans reaction. The reaction was just so minute that when they panned the crowd, all they had was one fat guy with his thumb upside down. That was it. Everybody else was basically looking with their mouth open like, I can't believe I paid money. And the main event is Wheeler Yuta. Oh, what a tragedy. I'd be so mad if I was in whatever town they're in Canada. Never heard of it. They had the match. Wheeler Yuta tried to cheat because Don Callis came out and distracted the referee. Takeshita attached Kenny Omega from behind with the Blue Thunder Bomb. Yuta couldn't get the full advantage of that, and ended up losing to the One-Winged Angel. It is what it is. The match was what it was. People were into Kenny Omega. He was the reason they were there, apparently. They didn't get any other stars. Well, they got Kenny Omega and Britt Baker. That was pretty much it. I guess if you like Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin, I guess. No Moxley, no Danielson, clearly, no Punk. The Elite are on Rampage, which is probably great because, they could tank the ratings on Rampage and nobody would give a shit. So after this match, the Blackpool Combat Club attacked Kenny Omega, beat him up. Then the Elite came out there. They came out there wheeling chairs. They started hitting the Blackpool guys with chairs. And then as the show was going off the air, the Dark Order helped the Blackpool Combat Club by stopping the Elite from hitting them with chairs. At this point is when you realize that they're wrestling the Elite on Rampage. And I was like, ooh, thankfully I'm not going to be watching that. Will not subject myself to that. Thank you kindly. Won't be doing it. So, but the Omega Yuta match was actually built up off of Wheeler Yuta being the guy who pinned Kenny Omega a couple of times. So it actually was a sensible one-on-one match. A match that probably needed to happen, as Wheeler Yuta has been bragging about beating Kenny Omega. I just didn't care about it. Wheeler Yuta just doesn't have a personality, He's just a beard that wrestles, and he's awful. It's absolutely awful. He sucks. He sucks so bad. Jesus Christ. He still looks like a mid-card jobber too, man. God damn. And he's in the main event. Woof. Anyway, that's Dynamite. Very bland show. Very, very bland. Boring, if you will. I want to complain for a few minutes about the audio of AEW. They spend too much money on, TNA never made the money that AEW made. They never sold the tickets that AEW sold. And yet, I never heard terrible audio from a TNA Impact show. Never. AEW, 4 fucking years. Whether you're in the building, because I was in the building, I went to see a Dynamite live. Couldn't hear shit. Not over those microphones. Couldn't hear fuck all anything in that building. And I'm like, it's not possible I can't hear shit on TV, or the audio will cut in and cut out. And I can't hear shit if I actually go to the building. How much, why is Tony Khan spending so much money? People in TNA, the wrestlers had second jobs. They were working at Sunglasses Hut and selling Auntie Annie's pretzels in the mall. And you could still hear every fucking thing they were saying on Impact. On Dynamite, you can't hear shit. I have to turn the TV all the way up just to get to some sensible audio out of this thing. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, if it's just me and my TV or whatever, I'm still going to go rant and rave about the audio because this ain't the first time. Again, it's been 4 years off and on every other week. The audio is shit. Do they ever test this stuff before they go on the air? Does anybody ever tell them while they're on the air, we can't hear you? We can't hear you. Can't hear the ring introductions. Can't hear the commentary. Can't hear shit. Now, I'm not saying that I want to hear all that stuff, but it's part of the presentation. Your part of your presentation is lacking in a major, major way. They need to fix their fucking audio issues. Be adults. Fix the fucking audio issues. Please. Because again, they've had audio issues since day one, and there's no excuse for it because this place is run by a billionaire, and they apparently make money. So if you make money like you claim, you're selling tickets like you claim, get the audio fixed so people can hear in the building and people can hear on TV. Fuck. This is the basics. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.